Hello, and welcome to the Masterclass on Mental Health. And this one is specifically for current and federal employees and military. I am Dr. Virginia Isbell. I am the Chief Medical Officer at Lead Life Psychiatry. And this presentation is being recorded and presented so that we can be a blessing to those who are current or federal employees who are active duty military, as well as retired or discharged veterans. It's being sponsored by Lead Life as well as Mountain Valley Health. So this is a part of a three-part series, but let me give you a couple of details before you engage. Please be fully present in what we're doing. We're going to talk about being fully present a little bit later, but just a friendly reminder to turn off your camera and your microphone, except for any comments that you're going to be making. And certainly, if when we're giving this as a live, we want to make sure that if you have comments, obviously you can raise your hand, unmute, and offer a comment. And if you're watching on one of the social media platforms after the live presentation, comments are always welcome throughout the presentation. If you see there's a different point, please, in your comment, the only thing we ask is that you just say, hey, at about 15 minutes or 5 seconds or about 5 minutes, you talked about XYZ. Could you address blah, blah, blah? And put that in your comment, type it in the chat box or type it on your platform. And either myself or one of my members of my team will respond to your question. And just remember, the information shared is not medical advice. It's here to spark conversation between yourself and your providers, your support system. So our learning agenda, this is a three-part series. This is going to be on three separate Wednesdays as a LinkedIn masterclass. It's talking about empowerment, understanding stress and trauma, and creating life change. And for today, this afternoon, we're going to be talking about empowerment, specifically getting started, how to get started with the kind of work that we're going to be doing, what it means to be a federal worker, how you are reacting, what is STEP and how you can apply it for yourself, boundaries, and homework. Each day, we're going to have homework or life work, as I like to call it. So who am I? I am Dr. Regina, again, with Lead Life Psychiatry. I am board certified as through the practice of psychiatry through the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. I am an interventional psychiatrist, which means we usually use procedures for difficult to treat conditions such as depression, PTSD, OCD, usually using procedures like ketamine, Spravato, TMS, or transmagnetic stimulation. I am in the certified trauma specialty, specifically as a trauma provider through several different certification programs. The one that is most germane to working with federal employees and the military is through the Center for Deployment Psychology. I am a STAR behavioral health provider, both for TRICARE and the VA. And from a personal note, I am an Army brat. My father was in the Army, and I'm also the daughter of a civilian federal worker, specifically for the Navy. My mother retired from the Navy after 44 years. So I know a little bit about this work in this area. So getting started, let's take some stock in what we're doing. So first of all, what are your goals for being here? There are plenty of things that you can be doing right now. Certainly sitting in a field of sunflowers, just enjoying life and getting some dopamine from the sun is one thing that you could be doing. You certainly can be doing this while you're watching this as well. But what is another goal for being here and doing this work? Are you the spouse of someone who was recently fired and you're having a hard time with that and you're wondering how ends are going to meet? Have you been relieved of duty and you are struggling with a variety of emotions and this just kind of resonated with you and you thought, hey, could this be something that would be helpful for me? Are you a person that has seen other people around you get fired or relieved of duty and you're feeling buyer's remorse a little bit and wondering, why some of these good people have been let go? And then the next thing is, how are you going to meet these goals? When I attend conferences, I usually have a book. Well, I'll write notes, and then I have a bigger book that I have once I get back home and decompress, and I'm able to transfer notes from conferences that I've attended, or podcasts, or other meetings that I've attended, and I'm able to kind of put down on pen to paper some major points, some major things that I want to get out of attending and what I'm actually going to utilize. What am I going to execute? How am I going to use the information from that training, from that class to actually do something about it? So how are you going to meet these goals? I want you to be thinking about that as well. Now, what does it mean to be a federal worker, whether you're a federal civilian worker or you're part of the military culture? We're going to do this in two parts. First of all, who do you admire? I want you to think about the people in your life that have been a part of your life and you have a strong sense of admiration for them. So what is it about them that you admire? Who do you admire, and what is about them that you admire? And there are a couple of people that have completely shaped my life in terms of who I want to emulate, both in terms of personal and professional, avocational and vocational. For example, every single one of my uncles was in some way, shape, or form connected to the military. And most of the men in my life when I was growing up were connected to the military. We have all five plus branches of the military covered. We have Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and National Guard. Okay. Between the uncles and the cousins, someone was in some branch of service or in maritime service or worked at the naval shipyard or for the naval base where I grew up. What did I admire about them? I personally admired the fact that they had very strong work ethic. They very much believed in family, very much honored the elders in the family. Always worked, sometimes worked multiple jobs, or if they had one main job, worked very long hours. It was nothing for me to see my uncles work 16-hour days. Nothing at all. To see them leave at 4 o'clock in the morning and not get home until well after dark. That was the norm in our area. And I admired that. I admired the fact that they were not only working on their regular jobs, but I remember one of my uncles in the Air Force, he worked in the Air Force, helped with building planes. He was an engineer and helped with building the planes. And then at the same time, I remember that he won an award for being the marathon runner for putting the most logged hours on his base, Langley Air Force Base. In addition to that, he was also in college at one point, and was earning his additional degree after getting past a certain point in the military. So constantly going up the ranks, constantly educating themselves, constantly bettering themselves, constantly being developers. I remember my mother in the civilian, as a civilian, if you have the pleasure of listening to our my interview of her, that'll be posted either currently now at the time of this class or in the not too distant future, you'll be able to see I know I admired her work ethic as well as a civilian working in the government, being willing to go from different job positions as long as it was again moving forward and that upward mobility. That was incredibly important to me to be able to see that, to model that, to emulate that. That was a part of the reason. One of my uncles is the reason that I am a psychiatrist. I remember seeing some of the struggles that he had in the military. I remember seeing some of the benefits that he was able to receive from a healthcare perspective, and then some of the shortcomings. And I remember asking him, saying to him, I would love to be a psychiatrist. What do you think? And I remember him saying, if it wasn't for a good psychiatrist, I don't know where I would be because of some of the things that I saw and experienced in the military with being deployed and being overseas. Those things impacted my ability to have a career. How have the people that you admired impacted your career decision? How did it impact your decision? Were you told, hey, we need to get that good government job because if you get a good government job, you're going to have job security. The government's always going to be there and they've got great benefits. You can retire from there, you can get a pension. And for the most part, they're going to treat you right. How many people heard that? Those are all things that you might have heard, might have seen, and might have impacted your ability or willingness to have a career in the military. For the longest time, I wanted to go in the military and actually did a period of time where I served for almost 11 years as a non-commissioned officer for the Public Health Service, directly related to my family and seeing them serve in the military. So what does it mean to you to be a federal worker? Does it just mean job security? Does it also mean that you're going to be part of a system that's bigger than you? Part of a system that's going to do a type of work that is going to have lasting impressions and lasting impact long after you're gone? Is it part of the legacy that you hope to leave? What does it mean to be a part of the military, a part of a brotherhood, right? A part of, again, something that's helping to protect the nation, protect yourself, protect your family. What messages did you get when you were younger, growing up as a young adult, being part of the military? What happens on Veterans Day or Memorial Day? How impactful is that for you as a person that's connected to the federal government and the military? How does it impact the way you feel about yourself being connected to these institutions? Now we're going to take that, unfortunately, a step further to talk about some of these these things that have happened in terms of the federal government, the surprise that some people had, the fact that there wasn't necessarily the safety net for some people to know that, hey, it's not like a typical RIF, a reduction in force, where you're being told we're going to be taking these jobs. Here, let me help you find a job someplace else. It's just, hey, you're being told that you no longer have a job, or you no longer have a position. We're giving it to someone else, or that position is just going to remain vacant. How does that impact you physically, mentally, spiritually, right? What connections do you have? And what messages are you hearing from others right now? What messages are you hearing from leadership and the community, society as a whole, culture? What are you hearing from other leaders and other people throughout the world? And then how is that impacting you? Are you having a sense of anger or calm or relief? How about fear or resignation, isolation? How are these things impacting you? And then have you done anything to counteract any of these things? What are your rights in these areas? Do you know what your rights are? And have you been telling yourself what your rights are? And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to give you a hint because that's going to be coming up in a little bit. It's part of an affirmation. And if you're interested in knowing more about that, getting more information, we will talk about it in the coming series. One of the pages that I'll be sharing later will be a rights and affirmation, a bit of information. But this one is about empowerment. And so as we're talking about the empowerment, it's more for you understanding what your rights are and owning them, not so much for how they may have been violated, but understanding and owning them.